Well, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard have made their way into Tennessee. There's a purchase of a large real estate firm, and they're right at the center of it. We're going to talk about that. Danger, danger. People throw around the term or evil corporations. These are actually evil organizations. We're going to talk about BlackRock coming to Tennessee. We're going to talk about Joe Biden, how I don't think he's actually the leader of the free world at this point in time. Several videos show some very, very troubling signs for the president of the United States. Then we're going to talk about Donald Trump and the huge headway that he's making. And we're going to discuss how he is not the divisive political figure that people say he is. I know that sounds controversial, but let's go ahead and talk about it. I'm Jared. This is Continue Freedom. It's going to be a good show. Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X, Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. Okay, so there's a big deal going on right now. This is kind of gone under the radar, if I'm being honest, but Compass. So Compass is the largest residential real estate brokerage in the United States by sales volume. They announced that they bought Parks Real Estate, Tennessee's #1 residential real estate firm by sales volume with over 1,500 agents. The combination of Compass and Parks agents now represents 1 of 4 homes sold in Tennessee. Okay, so what, you might say? Whoop-de-doo. Who cares about these people sold to Compass, the largest real estate firm in the country? Well, who are the owners of Compass? This is from Yahoo Finance. It's very easy to find this stuff. And when I heard about it, I thought, okay, that's strange. Who is Compass? Always look, you got to look a couple levels deep. Well, let's look. SB Investments, that's a UK firm. They own 92.4 million shares of the company because Compass is publicly traded. Vanguard Group, 58.85 million shares. So they own about almost 12%. BlackRock owns almost 5%. And then you can go down a little further. State Street, little old State Street, owns 1.39% of this company. That means that the same company, they're the same organization, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, it's all essentially one company. They have under management roughly 21 trillion. That's with old numbers, 21 trillion. And you want to talk about our GDP, which is about 25 trillion. They will surpass that in the next year, a lot of people say. And, those people, they say that. But they're going to have more under management than the entire U.S. GDP in these 3 companies. And if you have listened to any of the stuff I've talked about before, and I've heard other commentators talk about it, so it led me to do a deep dive into BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And essentially, they are all owners of each other. So it makes them one entity, more or less. The largest owner in BlackRock is State Street and Vanguard. The largest owner in Vanguard is State Street and BlackRock, and so on and so forth. And so this acts as one large organization. And this is the same organization that brought you the ESG movement, the one that we have heard so many people talking about, this environmental, social, and governance. And they are now making their way into the red states. The red states are seeing some unprecedented growth. Tennessee has seen unprecedented growth as people go on these mass exoduses out of their leftist strongholds and come to Tennessee and Florida and Texas and other conservative states. This has led to a real estate boom in a lot of these areas. It's led to massive increases in real estate value because this is a simple supply and demand. And State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, these are also the people who want to turn everybody into renters. They are part of the globalist agenda that want to turn everybody into renters. You've heard the old saying, you will own nothing and you will be happy. They are working right along the same lines as Klaus Schwab and all the other nefarious globalist actors to try to control the real estate market. And now by buying this Parks Real Estate, they are going to control it, coming and going, the buying and selling. They're going to control the supply eventually. This is part of their greater plan to have these much better, much wiser, much more benevolent people lording over top of us. And buying the real estate firm out is just another step in their grand scheme. It's just another step in their grand scheme. And so we have to fight back against this globalist garbage. We've been seeing it for decades, the globalist movement. And the globalist movement, you might have forgotten this. I see this as spiritual warfare. Globalism is something that we've all read it in the Bible. We talk about one world currency, one world government, one world religion. All these things are the tenets of globalism. And we see it they don't hide it from us at all. If you don't remember this was the statue that was put out in front of the UN. It's almost like they're mocking us on a biblical scale by putting this statue in front of the UN, which is a globalist organization. This is a global powerhouse. And in front of the UN, if you don't know anything about this beast, this is something that came straight from the Bible and end time prophecy. And this can be found in the book of Revelation. And I just lost my place here. Let's see. It's in Revelation 13:2, and it says, "And the beast which I saw was likened to a leopard, and his feet were the feet of a bear, and his mouth the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his great authority." These people don't hide the fact that they understand this is why I believe it's demonic in a lot of ways. The policies, the programs, the prescriptions that they have are evil at their very core. If you look at the Democrat Party, you want to talk about child sacrifice, you want to talk about child abuse, transgenderism, and the devaluing of children, which is essentially what this comes down to, the LGBTQ community. When you want to talk about dividing people along racial lines and religious lines and gender lines in any way that they can control us more easily, that plays into the socialist agenda, which is the format that they are using for their globalist agenda. But they divide us. And then you talk about globalism itself, telling us that we need to have the WHO as one of our as a rule-making body for we the people inside of the United States. This is constantly pushed. Well, listen to the WHO. The WHO knows. Always listen to the WHO, the World Health Organization. Don't listen to the independent doctors and physicians and people here in the U.S., the ones that we trust, the ones that we believe have a moral compass. No, to heck with your personal choice, your decision whether to or not to take some experimental drug and put it into your body. You have freedom to do that. I'm all for it. But the compulsion of behavior, compelling us to do something because some global authority told us to, that is the conditioning that they are putting us through. So I know I drew a lot of lines there going from just the sale of a real estate company, but I'm saying that that's what we are up against. We are up against people that are infecting these companies with tens of trillions of dollars, purchasing influence and power in order to leverage our society and leverage our economy for their own benefit and their own gain. And so who's the person that's going to step in and help us step away from this globalist agenda? Some people might say that it's Joe Biden. I think if you voted for Joe Biden, you probably don't believe the globalist agenda is an actual problem. But if you did, do you believe that this man here, that this man is the one who's going to fight against these massive powers, these hugely influential companies that are infecting our society, that are infecting our markets and our economy, are buying up our businesses? No. This guy? Come on. And I play this video, and I'm going to play this next one as well, because it begs the question, who is actually running the White House? You know, this is, and I just lost the place here again. Oh, I keep doing that. Here we go. Here's another one. This was posted by Colin Rugg, and this is the president at a fundraiser. Notice the hand positions. Notice the behavior. Frozen. Oop. Like a bad laptop. It's just sitting there spinning. And there you go. Obama gives him the Control-Alt-Delete. Okay, let's get this program running again. I'd love to know what he was whispering in his ear, by the way. But this guy keeps getting in front of world leaders. He keeps getting in front of donors and people of influence and freezing, not knowing where he is, and looking like an invalid. So we have an invalid in office. Meanwhile, we have this globalist agenda, which I will continue to call it that because that's exactly what it is. Globalism is what we are ultimately up against. It's infected the Democrat Party. In fact, it controls the Democrat Party. Their entire worldview is the globalist agenda. We should everybody in the world, think the same things, believe the same things, and it should all be that our higher authorities and our higher powers are where we derive our rights, our freedoms. All those things are granted to us because we got to take the God piece out of it. And that's why that statue and thing that they put in front of the UN, those are things that are mocking our beliefs in America. You know, the shining city on a hill that says we are endowed by our Creator with our unalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We are granted these rights at birth by simply existing because there is a higher power that created us. They are trying to undermine that. And in order for these bureaucrats to wield this power that they need, this invalid that they have in the White House, which is what he is, he's absolutely an invalid. He is cognitively declined. He is not able to string entire sentences together. He cannot keep his thoughts together. This is the man that they need to have in office, especially for another 4 years, because the ones making the decisions are the ones behind him, the ones we did not vote for, the ones that we don't know their names, we don't know who they are. They wander around the White House as though they own the place, and they are making decisions that impact all of us on a global scale. Those are the ones that are actually running the White House. Is Jill Biden? I don't know. That might be far-fetched. But she is certainly complicit in this elder abuse that's going on right now in the Oval Office. And we had a guy who bucked that system, who fought against that system. And we have now, it's been put on full display for 8 years. What happens when you buck the system? When you buck the globalist agenda, the globalist plan, they go after you with lawsuits, with nefarious trials, swayed juries, swayed judges. They put political activists as your judge to determine whether you are innocent or guilty. They hold it in Democrat strongholds where they control the media, they control the narrative. They use the hive mindset of New York and put him in a place chock full, 90 to 10, Democrat to Republican. And they find him guilty for a $130,000 payment to a porn star. Okay. Thomas Massey, just the other day, and I should have pulled this video. I just had it in my notes, but Thomas Massey was in front of Congress, and he said there's been $17 million paid out of the House of Representatives in hush money payments for sexual assault, sexual harassment, other sexual-related accusations. 17 million paid out of the House of our elected representatives, and yet they want to put Donald Trump in prison for $130,000 to a porn star. And so this is the problem. They will attack him because he's disrupted the system. He continues to disrupt the system. How else is he disrupting the system? He's disrupting the divides, the divisions that they have been preaching to us over and over and over and over again. They divided us on race. The black vote in turn, and this is, again, not just recently, this is over decades. They divided us on race. They encapsulated the black vote into the Democrat Party, and they took that for granted, and they said, we don't have to really do anything. We just keep telling them that we're going to do something. And meanwhile, $30 trillion later, 30, whatever the number is now, 3 years ago, it was 27 trillion. I forget what it is now, that we've spent on the war on poverty. And how much has that changed in the black community? How much has it gotten better? It has not gotten better. It has gotten worse. Worse over time. They are starting to wake up. And so Donald Trump was at an event at a black church here recently, and he basically, this pastor said, look, the former president, Obama, he never came here. Joe Biden did the NAACP thing. He never came here. Let's listen to him.
We achieved the lowest African American.
Oh, that was the wrong one. Let's play the video here.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
Very humble.
Really nice. Thank you. My honor.
This infuriates them. This absolutely infuriates them because he's breaking through these traditional divides that we've had in our culture. Black and white and male and female and all of these, they compartmentalize us. That is the socialist scheme. It's right out of Das Kapital. You got to divide people because they are much more easy to control when you divide them. When you pit one group against the other. What they are realizing is that, hey, you know what? I grew up watching Donald Trump in rap videos. I grew up watching Donald Trump on MTV. He was all over the TV. You always saw Donald Trump. He was on Oprah. He was, friends with all of the influencers and all the people of the time, of the 80s and the 90s and into the 2000s. He was a superstar. He had this hit TV show. He wasn't a racist. He wasn't a bigot, but he wasn't running for president. The moment he runs for president, all of the lobbyist class, all of the people in the Washington establishment said, this guy, we don't know what he's going to do. We can't control this guy like we could control a George Bush. We can't control this guy like we controlled a Barack Obama. We can't control this guy like we've been able to control presidents for decades. And they can't allow that to be the case. The system is not set up for you to go on social media, become relatively famous, politically speaking, and then run for office. Or to go on social media and have a video go viral where you're talking about your policy prescriptions. The next thing you know, you're popular enough to run for president. And you're able to get donations and have a successful president. No, it's not supposed to be any Joe Schmo off the street. It's supposed to be the selected, not the elected. And Donald Trump changed that. So they attack him on every front. And when they see him breaking down barriers in the black community, when you see the man on the street interviews, and I've watched dozens of them in the past couple of weeks, dozens of man on the street interviews. Hey, who are you voting for this year? Oh, Trump all the way. Trump all the way. And these are black folks, by the way. Yeah, they've listened to the same thing over and over and over again, and they're sick of it. And Donald Trump is capitalizing on that. Now, when we see him, I will tell you how one of the ways that they're attacking him. Let's talk about Raphael Warnock. As much as we don't want to talk about Raphael Warnock, that's exactly what we're going to do. Raphael Warnock, he came out and he said, who really is their God? When Raphael Warnock criticizes pro-Trump evangelical Christians. These same folks who raise these issues around family values and private morality are the ones who are speaking as if he is the Messiah of God. Nobody has said that. We're saying that he's going to make our country great, but no evangelical out there is saying that he is messianic. Now, some people say that, that God has his hand on Donald Trump because he's fighting through all these fights. I wouldn't even necessarily argue against that, because this man has gone through absolutely ridiculous challenges that are, it's an evil attack on him, on his presidential campaign. And it's an evil attack inside of a country that used to be, and now still in a large part follows Judeo-Christian principles, which is why I believe we've been a blessed nation for a very long time. But is he some messianic figure? No. In fact, I think that is the downfall of a lot of Christians' arguments, about Donald Trump. The Christians that hate him believe that we should have some type of a messianic figure. At least this is how they talk. I'm not, imparting some sort of judgment on them for that. But let me read this part. Senator Raphael Warnock took aim at pro-Trump evangelical Christians during a recent interview with the New Yorker. He questions how they could morally stand by their Christian convictions and support the former president, who he described as an adulterous convicted felon. Again, it's like I said in my last video, this is all they needed was to say convicted felon. So they're going to add that to every other descriptor that they can about Donald Trump. But he's an adulterous convicted felon. He then accused them of treating Trump as if he were the Messiah of God. Senator Warnock, a Baptist pastor in Atlanta, joined host David Reminick of the New Yorker Radio Hour to discuss the nation's moral and spiritual battle, which, okay, I'll agree with him on that. We are in a moral and spiritual battle. While the senator slammed conservative Christians for supporting the presumptive GOP nominee, he did not mention any critical issues that conservatives are concerned about, such as removing God from schools, the LGBTQ indoctrination of minors, destroying the traditional nuclear family, and more. Here's the reason. The Democrat Party is for those things. It's ingrained in their platform. You talk about child sacrifice, which is what I call it, but abortion. You talk about child abuse, which is the transgenderism. You talk about LGBTQ. You talk about the way they have segregated schools and segregated our society, rather. Segregating of schools is when they say we need to have black-only spaces. Well, that's no different than the 1960s. When we say that this is that is obviously not in keeping with the progress of our society. That's moving us backwards. But let's go on, and we could say that the affirmative action movement, which served a purpose at one point in time, but now with equal rights for all, should be a merit-based system, and it's not a merit-based system. In fact, we saw that in Harvard and other places, having lawsuits against them because they were discriminating against Asian students who performed better than everybody else. So they were trying to take them down a peg. That's the socialist agenda as well. You have to put everybody on an even playing field, as if we are cookie-cutter people. One right after the other, everybody is the same. Just take your widget, stamp it out, put it in the basket. This is what they want all of us to be. They want robots. They want uniformity. And the way to do that is through authoritarian government. Then you've got globalism, right? This is part of the left. Globalism is antithetical to Christianity. When you talk about the World Health Organization, they say don't do your own research. There's several memes out there where they were all the news commentators, Brian Stelter and Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon, all these commentators saying, oh, don't do your own research. You're a fool if you do your own research. How dare you do your own research? Just listen to the WHO, the World Health Organization. Globalists, they need a global powerhouse to regulate humanity. The World Economic Forum, this is a global power of the elites, all the rich people, all the politicians and the business owners, the State Streets, BlackRocks, Vanguards, that I like to talk about. All these people are tied in deeply with the World Economic Forum, which is another more subversive and secretive organization, but they're secretive in the backroom dealings, but they've become very open about the more or less the basic structure of their policy prescriptions, which is authoritarianism, world rule, no borders, no boundaries. They buy into the George Soros borderless world theory, and everybody should be under the thumb of the people who know better, the rich, the powerful. And Raphael Warnock plays right into this. That's why he can't. Oh, and then the disruption of the nuclear family, which we heard from Black Lives Matter, but it's become a critical piece of leftist politics. These non-standard families, and you don't have to be married, and that disrupt the nuclear family because that's been a form of cohesion for people. And the final thing I will say is the vilification of religious people. He's sitting here vilifying conservative evangelical Christians who believe that Donald Trump is the one who can take our country to the next level. They believe that these evangelical Christians believe in our Judeo-Christian principles. They believe in our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and they believe that Donald Trump is poised to return those rights to us, the ones that have been stolen, or for him to stand up for us amongst all the higher governmental authorities, the deep state, and all those folks. And he's shunning them for it. So this is kind of what we're up against. And this is why they attack Donald Trump, because he's just really screwing up the plan. He's really screwing up the plan. And Raphael Warnock is pissed about it. And I'm going to make a statement that some people are going to probably get pissed about, and I just don't care. But all those things that I listed, if you are a Christian, or you call yourself a Christian, and you vote Democrat, you are not voting in keeping with any of the biblical principles that generally guide our life. If you vote Democrat now, it has become so ingrained in their politics, then you are voting for abortion, you are voting for transgenderism for children, you are voting for the LGBTQ, all that divisive nonsense. You're voting for the globalizing our power structure, vilifying people because of their immutable characteristics. These are antithetical to Christianity, and so I do not believe that in this day and age, in 2024, that you can vote for a Democrat and still maintain, hey, I'm a Christian. No. It's not possible. It's not possible. Because people that will flagrantly throw these things in front of our faces, who the Democrat Party is ultimately supporting. Globalism is biblical. Globalism is evil. The Bible clearly tells us this. It's not even a question. Now I'm imparting motive on the artist of that, but I don't find it a coincidence that the same people who our Fauci and people were turning to, the WHO, we're going to turn to the all these higher global powers as our supreme authority through the COVID pandemic. The same ones who were giving us this garbage guidance would be the same ones that were recommending to shut down cities and shut down governments, or not governments, but because the governments were in full force, but lock people in their homes, would be the same ones who would have satanic and evil imagery outside of their building. The globalist agenda. The globalist agenda. And when you look, I'll go to a more general political statement here, and that's that just on its surface, conservatism, what most conservatives believe, it's not, let me rephrase, it's not so much that the Republicans are right on everything, it's that everything about the Democrat Party is wrong. Everything about the Democrat Party is wrong. And there's people who blindly do this. I'm not imparting some sort of nefarious intent on every Democrat voter, because a lot of people just don't pay attention to what's going on in the world. And unfortunately, we are at a time where we have to. Everybody has to. Everybody has to do their part. You have to be informed about what's going on around you. You have to be able to look and think about things 2 or 3 levels deep. Something that seems innocuous on the surface, like the sale of a real estate company, And you look 2 levels deep and you realize who is making that purchase. And so who is thus going to control 1/4 of the real estate market inside of a red state are the same people who say that everybody should be renting, that nobody should own anything, the same ones that can go in and buy up massive neighborhoods and turn them into rental properties for people who otherwise would have bought them, and they can buy those properties at 20% over the market value, where the average Joe Schmo can't afford it. It is evil. It is them influencing our decision making. It's by taking away our options, by taking away our choices, by using their money and their power for evil, not for good. And so I'll go back to saying that the Republicans aren't right on everything, but they more closely align with our beliefs than a Democrat can. And you might say, well, he's just horrible. He's an adulterer. He's what were some of the talking points I've picked up off of X, where everybody goes to get all their great information. He's had multiple marriages. He uses foul language. He's obnoxious. He has an ego. They love to bring up the comments that he made a couple of years ago on a hot mic. He came out and openly, this is one that I've heard from a couple people or seen from a couple people. He came out and openly supported the Supreme Court decision to hand abortion down to the states. I don't agree with that either. I think it should be a federal ban on abortion. But it was progress made, and it was progress made in the right direction. But these perfect people who love to slam him for all of his faults, and there are many, obviously. These perfect people, where are they running for office? If we put them up in front of the entire world, would they not be the most infallible people you've ever seen in your life and run this country just immaculately and fight back against all the corruption that I've spent the past, 20 minutes talking about? Would these perfect people be able to do that? No. Because there is no such thing as a perfect person, save one, who maybe will come back before all this comes to a head. But lest we remember that we are in a fallen world, every person is fallible. We will never have the perfect president. If you ask a lot of folks, and I have, well, what would be your perfect vision for a country? I want somebody who is articulate, someone who is, kind-hearted, who wants the best for everybody, who's a good diplomat, who will bring us world. They talk about Mitt Romney is essentially who they describe, and we've already tried that out. And how exactly did that work for us? Mitt Romney, a Democrat with a red necktie. That's basically what he is. He's got the R next to his name. He's all, hey, GOP. And he's a Democrat through and through. And he doesn't fight back against the system. He is part of the system. You can say the same thing about Mike Pence. Unless we forget that throughout history, every president that we've had, every world leader they are all fallible people. George Washington himself. We look at George Washington as if he's some mythical figure, and he wasn't. He was a man who had his own faults, lots of faults. He wasn't he wasn't winning a lot as a general, but he brought in somebody. He was a manager. He was a good leader. He brought in somebody to come and train his soldiers at Valley Forge. He was able to turn the war around, increase discipline. But he was not an infallible individual. And he did some things that made him appear that way. If you look at after 2 terms as president, he left. He retired. Well, he got contacted by Governor I forgot the name. I was actually reading through letters. Hang on a second. Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. Jonathan Trumbull Jr., the governor of Connecticut. And they were asking him, he was pleading with President Washington to come back and run for a 3rd term. He was very adamant about not doing that because he believed after you had served your time, you had, accomplished all you wanted to accomplish, step aside, because that type of power should not be enshrined in one office for an extended period of time. I mean, he could have been Emperor of America if he wanted to be. But he chose not to. He did the benevolent thing, and he stepped down. And when Governor Trumbull reached out to him, he said that the line between parties had become so clearly drawn that politicians would, quote, regard neither truth nor decency, public or private, who happen to differ from themselves in politics. He knew that the party system inside of politics, when everybody's not just, voting on a whole on policy, this guy has these policy prescriptions, these guys have these policy prescriptions. When you make it structured, as in a political party, that this would ultimately divide our country. He knew that at the very founding, and this was in 1799 or 98. It was 98 or 99. But either way, he knew that this was going to be divisive, and we've watched it progress over 200 plus years to where we are today, where the political system has us so divided. But he was not an infallible person. He gave us great wisdom. He was an amazing guy. If I could sit down and have a cup of coffee with anything other than Christ, I would sit down with George Washington. And it lasted, that precedent that he set lasted until 1951, when we did have an evil guy, socialist guy, as the president of the United States, FDR, who was sitting in, about to start his fourth term. And we were like, okay, we have to get this on lockdown. And so the 22nd Amendment comes into play, where we put term limits in place so that one man can't sit and hold that power. Something that was ultimately determined to be, or something that was common sense. Like, no, of course, we still have our values and our morals, and we shouldn't concentrate this power into one person for, in perpetuity for 4, 5, 6 terms. No, we shouldn't do that. Term limits. That was just, people understood it. They didn't need it in writing. But as soon as we had a socialist in office who said, I'm going to sit in this office for as long as I possibly can, wield this power for as long as I possibly can, then we were like, oh, okay, now we got to hold up. We got a whole new evil to contend with. But you can look at all of our world leaders, even in recent history. They are not going to be infallible. We need the right person at the right time. And Donald Trump is the guy who can go in and rip apart this deep state, or start to. The Department of Justice is going to be relentless. So to eradicate this cancer from our society, it's going to be painful. Donald Trump is showing us that. Donald Trump is showing us how he can weather that storm at 77 years old, how he can fight that fight at 77 years old. And I think when he gets in, he's going to make some meaningful change. But you're telling me that the sweet Catholic, Joe Biden, is a better option? The sweet Catholic who, used your money to buy the jet fuel, to pay for the fancy dinners that he used to enrich himself and his family. That's better for you. That's more acceptable for you. Not you, but the people out there that believe this mess. That's more acceptable than a guy who, got some money from his dad, took a few $1,000,000 and turned it into billions and billions of dollars by exchanging services and products for money, i.e., a free market system, a free market capitalist guy. But you'd rather the guy who ripped off the taxpayers and peddled influence in order to make his family rich, to have multiple homes. We got to check ourselves. We really do. We absolutely have to check ourselves. And that's why my support for Trump, the more they attack him, the more unrelenting my support for him becomes. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you. God bless you.